Ever since I was introduced to Fairy Tale, one character has completely stolen my heart. Lucy Heartfilia. Fitting, huh? The new member of the Fairy Tale Guild, the runaway daughter of a robber baron and a celestial wizard with not one, not two, but 10 zodiac keys. Of 12. We'll get there. As a newcomer to the world of magic, Lucy is an audience surrogate. We are welcomed into the halls of Fairy Tale along with her, watching as she befriends her future teammates, rooting for her every step of the way, and yelling with her as Taurus refuses to do his job because he's too busy trying to get on a registry. And as a fellow author, I feel a strong connection to Lucy's love of writing, which is why I'm kinda sad not much was ever done with that until she published The Adventures of Iris at the very end. In general, my love of Lucy is entangled with disappointment for how the show treats her at every turn. Apparently, she's Hiromashima's favorite, but you would never know that from watching the show. Her magic is often made into a joke, her spirits either refusing to do their job or doing so incompetently. She's routinely turned into a damsel for everyone else to save. Natsu in particular, and when she does finally get a moment to shine, it is either ripped away at the last second or tainted by tragedy, which wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't only her getting this treatment. So today we're going to talk about why I love Lucy Heartfilia of Fairy Tale, and how the show did her dirty, because I got 328 episodes of anger to work out, and best believe I'm gonna get paid for it. If most of us were sent on a mission to retrieve a cursed flute with the power to kill anyone who hears its melody, we'd probably cry at the mere thought. Sure, we like to think that we'll probably try to face our fears and save the day, but we're not gonna do so looking as fearless as Urza, Grey, or Natsu. And that is why Lucy is so endearing to me. Despite her fears, she chooses to go on these missions with her friends. It does beg the question of why she wanted to be a wizard in the first place, given it sometimes seems like she'd rather do anything than play the metaphorical knife game on a daily basis. But I admittedly just assume it's her wanting to be more like her mother Layla, which we'll also talk about more later. Through it all, she's a loving friend, always wanting to support others, albeit being quite sassy when they test her patience. Sherry Millet really helps sell Lucy's personality, putting in the work to make her someone sweet, and definitely scared, but ultimately a badass. Her magic is quite unique in Fairy Tale. She's a summoner, calling upon the power of other entities, while she herself only has a whip she rarely actually uses, and a kick inspired by Sailor Venus, which is fitting since she's voiced by Sailor Venus. The use of constellations, and especially the zodiac, is what brings a unique quality to her magic. They become full characters we can associate with what we know of astrology, which can be frustrating at times, but that's for lunatics like me to froth at the mouth over. By the end of the series, Lucy is able to pull off powerful spells like Uranometria and Fairy Sphere, and she's unlocked the Star Dress technique, allowing her to take on the powers of her spirits herself. It's a bit odd it was saved for the very last season, leaving its introduction in the time skip, but for what it's worth, I really like this idea of her being able to fight alongside her spirits. I may not claim Sagittarius, but seeing him and Lucy as archers side by side is iconic. But what makes Lucy human and deeply personal is her complicated family life. Her mother was a celestial wizard who passed away when Lucy was young, leaving her to be raised mostly by her father, Jude's staff, while he ran the business. At times, his distance is characterized by cartoonish meanness, but it does drive home the fact that he and Lucy are not close. He may love her, but it manifests as him treating her solely as an asset to be used for his business. So when Lucy leaves, it's to find her own sense of self and build her own life. She leaves behind her father's wealth to try and make it on her own as a guild wizard. As far as I know, her mother was not a part of a guild despite being a wizard, which I would imagine made the prospect all the more intimidating for Lucy. Still, she did it, and it was the best decision that she had ever made. Once she joins Fairy Tale, she finds an entirely new family that accepts her despite her being a stranger. And when they discover her identity, they don't turn on her. They don't hand her over to Phantom Lord, whom her father hired to bring her back to him. This moment where they all refuse to hand over Lucy, even when their guild is in peril, makes me cry every time. It's something a lot of people come to discover when they become adults, especially if their family is dysfunctional. They can build their own family of people who love them for who they are, and you don't need your biological family's love to be happy. Sometimes you have to let that go in order to find yourself and your way in life. And that takes courage. That takes a great strength, one Lucy possesses in spades. That's not to say you don't love your family. In fact, this distance can make the heart grow fonder and give both parties time to sort through their shit. After a 7-year time skip where most of Fairy Tail was kept in stasis, because anime, Lucy returns to find that her father passed just a month before she awakened. Initially, she doesn't cry. She's trying to sort out how she feels, and Natsu tells her that just because she isn't crying, it doesn't mean that she never loved him. However you feel or don't feel, and however you express that or don't, it's valid. It isn't until she gets home, finding that her father has paid off her apartment and left her gifts believing his daughter would one day return home, that Lucy's heart begins to stir. As she reads her father's final letter, she weeps. He pours his heart out, more loving and affectionate in words than he ever managed in his life. He tells her that he's proud of her and that he loves her, and she says that she loves him too, and says goodbye. Family is messy. Even when you don't see eye to eye with them, or the relationship is beyond repair, you can't help but love each other most of the time. It's innate within you, and that acknowledgement that love cannot be simply turned off, and you can still feel terribly hurt when a parent you're not close with, who may have even hurt you, is gone. That's okay. Or if you don't think you feel anything, that's okay too. However you respond, that is you. It's how you feel, and you can't help that. Her closure is found in the Starry Heavens arc, an anime-exclusive storyline where Lucy's cousin Michelle Lobster, who in childhood referred to her as Big Sister Lucy, brings a relic of Jude's that the antagonists seek. Through all the chaos, Lucy and Michelle's friendship and their memories of childhood bring them together. It's the last living link that Lucy has to her family, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when it turns out Michelle was never Michelle, because anime, and a little bit of soap opera. In reality, the actual Michelle Lobster was injured and hidden away, while this Michelle that's been getting close to Lucy turns out to be Imitatia, a member of the Neo-Oración Seis, or as I like to call them, the new 6 Spanish prayers. Imitatia posed as Michelle to get close to Lucy, encouraging Fairy Tail to carry out the Seis plan for them, and at the end, capture Lucy, as they need a celestial wizard of her power to finish their operation. We'll talk about the whole Lucy damsel in distress thing later, but we discover that Imitatia is a doll Lucy had as a child. She kept Lucy company in her days in the manor, but was abandoned following Layla's death. The memories were just too painful for Lucy, and Michelle was unable to do anything to help her. The Seis, through anime nonsense, brought Michelle the doll to life, giving her a new identity as Imitatia. She got close to Jude in his final days, since he still possessed what the Seis were after. But as her connection to Lucy while she was gone, Michelle cherished her time with him, and was rocked by his death. It's a bit silly having Jude on his deathbed tell Michelle that Lucy will be her big sister again, somehow knowing that she's the doll Lucy had as a kid. But you know what? Silly ain't bad. In fact, silliness, when sincere, fucks up the heartstrings like nothing else. And so, in this irony-poisoned world, I will take my dose of silly sad bitch hours. Michelle is doing all of this believing that she will be able to stay with Lucy forever, and when she realizes that she's being deceived by Midnight, she desperately tries to save Lucy, only to be turned back into a doll. The sisters get one last goodbye together in Lucy's mind as Lucy puts the pieces together. And you bet your ass this shit hits like a brick. Even seeing her in the background in future arcs sitting on Lucy's desk or on a shelf in doll form, it brings me warm fuzzy feelings knowing that she's still with her sister. And knowing that through this, Lucy finally has accepted the loss of her parents, and that she will be able to move on with her life. She'll never forget them or lose the pain of their deaths, but she can navigate it now. Another thing you realize when you start losing loved ones, you never really stop missing someone. You just kind of learn to live with the memory in place of their absence. Through all of this, Lucy's greatest strength is her compassion. She is a rarity among celestial wizards, treating her spirits as her friends and family rather than as simple tools or even slaves like Angel or Karen. And it's this bond which makes her spirits stronger. theoretically. We'll get there later, but the show does give you the idea that it's because of Lucy's love for her spirits that she has the potential to become such a powerful, great wizard. We also see this in her friendships with the members of Fairy Tale. In a way, she kind of fills the slot left behind by Lizana for Natsu, and brings the Fire Fairies together. Natsu, Gray, and Urza were once close, but it isn't until Lucy comes along that they become a full-fledged team. Lucy is then the heart of their team, the person binding them all together. That's not to mention other great moments, like where she helps Loki resolve his guilt for Karen's fate, telling off the Celestial Spirit King himself when the law needs to be changed. We stand a queen who demands systemic change. I also wish they did more with her friendship with Kana, especially given it was quite wholesome in the Tenro arc, seeing Lucy do whatever she could to help Kana prepare emotionally to face her father. It's a friendship that gets forgotten the moment the arc ends, but what else do you expect? Even Juvia. Juvia, in her long-running obsession with Gray, views Lucy as her rival, even though Lucy has literally no romantic interest in Gray whatsoever. But you know, women gotta hate women. Still, Lucy is welcoming to Juvia when she joins Fairy Tale, despite Juvia abducting her in the Phantom Lord arc. They even fight together in the Tower of Heaven arc, with Lucy saving Juvia when she's turned into a horrifying groupie. You just roll with it. But it makes me wish they sustained this friendship instead of reverting back to, we will fight for Gray. Bitch, also, that ending of that fight where Juvia just falls in the water, crying, saying as if this room isn't flooded enough. It did things to my heart. By the end of the series, Lucy is a certifiable bad bitch with a heart of gold, the Titania of the stars. Her spirits are finally doing their damn jobs regularly. Her star dress makes her more capable in combat, and she's getting full rivalries like the others instead of joke enemies like the one voodoo guy we don't talk about. But all that said, I still have qualms with how the show treats her. All the things I have said about why I love her, not all of that is from the direct text of the show. Feelings of grief and loss in the Starry Heavens arc, for example, aren't fully explored. They're more touched upon before moving back to the big dumb anarchy clock plot, say that 5 times fast. And there are plenty of things on the journey to the final season that can make Lucy's glow up feel too little too late. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how the show did not appreciate nor highlight Lucy Heart-fucking-philia. I have words, Hiromashima. I have notes. Weaknesses are not a bad thing. They make stories more engaging because they require characters to recognize their flaws and find creative ways to work around them. Whether it's their own ingenuity or learning how to delegate parts of combat to a teammate who can offset their weaknesses, all characters should have certain weaknesses and not overcome them, because that's how shit gets boring. You all know what show I'm throwing shade at, don't lie. Don't tell their fandom. Which makes it frustrating how Lucy's weaknesses wind up highlighted in such an exaggerated way. Because she has to rely on her spirits, it means she herself isn't very capable. She has a whip and a kick, but those ain't much, especially when the former does not get used very often, and the latter is reserved for jokes. Jokes actually tend to be a big problem in Fairy Tale. Like any shonen, the show loves its running gags, even when it drives them into the damn ground. A gag is not necessarily bad, but it becomes bad when it's so recurring that you become numb to the joke, and it gets in the way of both plot advancement and character development. Pretty much every character in Fairy Tale has a gag that gets in the way of any potential change to the status quo, flanderizing their characters, especially in later seasons. Lucy herself doesn't have too many bad gags, aside from people weirdly sexualizing her, but we'll talk about that later. The problem is with her spirits, each one of them being given a gag that gets in the way of them helping in battle. Aquarius hates Lucy, and so either tries to kill her, or decides to go on a date with her boyfriend instead. Oh, and drinking the I hate women juice. Taurus is a pervert who's too busy ogling Lucy and other women in the vicinity to realize that he's about to get yeeted into the stratosphere. And then there are other spirits who almost never get used, like Gemini, Aries, Scorpio, and Capricorn. The only spirits who regularly feel useful are Loki and Virgo. They both still have gags. Loki continually flirts with Lucy, while Virgo is into some freaky things I cannot discuss because demonetization. But they both still get the job done, and that is a rarity among Lucy's spirits. Sagittarius does put in the work, but His design is a depressed man who works at Party City that kinda undercuts any usefulness he does actually have. To his credit, Cancer was very useful in the first season, but just kinda never gets used in the rest of the show. Actually, I think he stops getting used in Tower of Heaven when she's fighting a rock star with luscious long hair that absorbs Juvia's water. You know what really helped fighting him? A hairdresser. I'm just saying, you did it against Flare. Why didn't you do it against Kiss Reject Man? There's also the fact that, the show has a very bad relationship with dark-skinned characters, usually relegating them to either villains who die brutally rather than get redeemed, like Brain and Azuma, or just shoving them into the background, like these Phantom Lord members with cool designs. I actually really like them. Especially the one with mirror powers, yes. They deserve better, damn it. This also applies to Cancer and Scorpio, the darkest skinned of the Zodiac who wind up hardly ever getting used by Lucy, despite them being certified badasses. Compare this to Yukino, another celestial wizard we meet in the Grand Magic Games arc. She only has 2 Zodiac keys, Libra and Pisces. And still, the presentation and powers of both are infinitely more impressive and useful than the majority of Lucy's 10. Granted, Yukino does not use her Zodiac keys after this arc, instead either relying on her less powerful silver keys, or just summoning nothing. But that's another problem the show has with supporting characters and reformed antagonists. We'll save it for another time. And also, why does Lucy have 10 of the 12 Zodiac keys? Especially given how most of them are either useless or just rarely get summoned, there's no reason for her to have so many, and it cheapens the value of the gold keys. And makes me wonder why Lucy does not get more effective silver keys that aren't useless perverts. Honestly, she felt more impressive when she only had 3 or 4 gold keys, using them in specific situations that called for their skill sets. Now, because they're all characters whose gags need to be drilled into the audience's skulls, we have to revolve between all of them as quickly as we can, which means we also need most of them to lose within seconds of being summoned. And personally, I don't really like the idea of one person having most or all of the Zodiac keys. It feels like a Heartphilia monopolizing the Zodiac, which especially feels familiar given her father's wealth and power. Ooh, how the cycle continues! I would prefer Lucy being limited to 4 Zodiacs, and then supplementing them with silver keys. And my own personal dream is Yukino having another 4, and then Princess Hisui having the last 4. And they get to be a little, you know, celestial trinity. Like, y'all really made the princess a celestial wizard and then gave her no keys. The audacity, wow. The point is that Lucy is made out to be uniquely weak. Because the spirits reflect the power of their wizard, the weakness and foolishness of the spirits can be read as an implication of Lucy's own weakness and foolishness. When she's just starting out, that's perfectly fine, especially because the gags in the first few seasons have not had enough time to become wearying to the soul. But by Tenro, it really becomes grating for me. That said, there is actually an arc in season 1 that feels particularly bad for Lucy. Her own. While later seasons are usually dedicated to one overarching arc, season 1 is divided into several, each focused on one of the 4 primary characters of Natsu's unnamed team. My friend Max and I call them the Fire Fairies, you're welcome. The Phantom Lord arc follows the eponymous guild tormenting Fairy Tail in order to kidnap Lucy, who they've been contracted to return to her father. As such, this arc should be her time to shine. But it ain't. Lucy is kidnapped by Phantom not once, but twice. First, while she's out getting groceries. The other members of Fairy Tail raid Phantom Lord's guild hall to get revenge for Team Shadowgear. Lucy abstains for some reason, and winds up getting kidnapped by Juvia and Soul of the Element 4. She loses her keys in the process and doesn't get them back until towards the end of this arc, leaving her completely helpless for the majority of the time. She's saved by Natsu in what I will admit is a very cute moment. She takes a literal leap of faith knowing that he'll come to her rescue. It's about as active as she can be in this predicament, and it highlights both her courage and her trust in her newfound family. And also it made for a hilarious joke in that One Abridged series that ended too soon. Do a flip! I do enjoy this arc because it's the first time we see the entire guild coming together for one of their own. It emphasizes that Fairy Tail is a family, and they refuse to turn their backs on each other. But that unfortunately means that Lucy now has to share her arc with literally everyone else. And by share, I mean, get put on the back burner while Elfman, Mira, Natsu, Gray, and Urza do most of the heavy lifting. And Makarov too. They all get to fight and prove their strength and get powerful moments of character development, and Lucy gets tortured. Yeah, the Lucy torture is a recurring theme, unfortunately, and we're going to be talking about this again. It is something that's very common with a lot of writers who want their story to feel gritty, to raise the stakes, or to force the audience to sympathize with a character, put them in extreme amounts of physical pain, and then call that character development. And Lucy sadly gets the brunt of it, getting slammed into walls as Gajiel enjoys his era of being cartoonishly evil before Natsu beats him into the chill 80s rock star we all know him better as. This winds up turning what should be an arc of Lucy proving herself, even without her keys, into everyone else's story where she is instead the object we must protect. All Lucy really gets to do is use Sagittarius to help Natsu beat Gajiel, and that's it. And I think that was Sag's idea, not even Lucy's, so even her spirits be stealing shit. Lucy does not get a fight or a rival of her own. Hell, even the fact that Mira sent her away against her will to protect her, only for her to get kidnapped anyway, is kind of like rubbing salt in the wounds of Lucy's stands. Like, did you really need her to get kidnapped twice in the same arc? And this doesn't happen in the other arcs. Gray gets the majority of the focus on Galuna Island, and Urza gets to shine as we learn about her past in the Tower of Heaven. Natsu honestly gets way too much to do in all of the Season 1 arcs, often taking over storylines that don't really have anything to do with him. All the while, Lucy gets relegated to the background for bad gags and rescue missions. There are some good moments here and there, such as Lucy defeating Bixlow in the Battle of Fairy Tail arc, or Lucy versus Angel in Celestial Skirmish, though the latter is kind of ruined by Hibiki just giving Lucy the Uranometria spell to play cosmic bowling with Angel's face as the pins. Couldn't let her know the spell already and struggled to cast it until that moment. You had to have someone else force the spell onto her. Okay. Which sucks, because that episode is also powerful in showing Lucy trying to adapt to the situation and showcasing her love for celestial spirits, which is strong enough to turn Gemini against Angel. And all of that gets undercut both by Hibiki and by Aquarius and Taurus refusing to get off their asses. She's kidnapped again in Starry Heavens. Technically twice? Again? Twice in the same arc? Well, the first isn't so much a kidnapping as it is a confrontation and a demand. The loser platoon, the Legion platoon, wants the clock piece Jude left for Lucy, demanding she be handed over as they stomp all the fairy tale girlies. It's another case of waiting for the plot to arrive and also the protagonist being nerfed to make the new baddies seem more imposing, but again, story for another time. The second kidnapping is by Michelle, as the Neo-Arashioan Seis need Lucy as a celestial wizard to power the Infinity Clock. Their plan is incredibly stupid, and has this weird talk about how without time we would all lose our minds and die, but like, this ain't deep shit. This sounds like a grade schooler contemplating anarchy and existentialism in a very basic ass sense. Oh, hi Zahir, when did you get in? But it's another case of Lucy being the damsel who must be saved by everyone else. And she doesn't even get a rematch with Angel. Jail. The only saving grace is her and Michelle's storyline, and the fact that Lucy winds up saving everybody else in the end. But it doesn't undo the frustration up until that point. And then Grand Magic Games. Oh dear god, GMG. Okay, now see, I love this arc, especially like the first half. I think the show handled the tournament aspect well, and I found most of it fun. It was only when we started getting into the underground maze of annoyance and all the weird Eclipse Gate stuff I started mentally tapping out, especially with Lucy getting kidnapped by the fucking king. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But oh my god, did they do Lucy dirty in this arc. She's part of the main team representing Fairy Tail. Well, one of two teams, that's not important anyway. Her first fight is against Flare of Raventail, a guild that's out to destroy Fairy Tail for reasons. Honestly, they don't matter, and they completely vanish halfway through GMG. But I bring this up because the Flare fight is utterly infuriating for Lucy stans such as myself. Not so much because of the fight itself, but because of how it ends and what comes after. See, for most of the fight, Lucy actually holds her own really well. She's using multiple spirits one after the other, and they're all used in efficient ways against Flare. We even see a combo move between Taurus and Scorpio that we desperately need more of. Being in Raventail, though, Flare fights dirty, threatening the life of Biska and Ozak's daughter in order to make Lucy take the beating. Yay, more Lucy torture. And this time it's in front of the whole world. Joy, that's exactly what I wanted. Natsu realizes Flare's threat and quickly snuffs it out, allowing Lucy to go back to kicking ass. It's one of the few moments I don't mind Natsu coming to help, mostly because he remains in a supportive role, allowing Lucy to go back to shining, unlike other moments where Natsu just completely takes over. But then, as Lucy uses Uranometria on Flare, it gets cancelled. Yeah, they just say someone canceled the spell, and the visuals imply it's this little freak who attacked Wendy earlier and drained all of her magic. But the thing is, we have not established spell canceling before now. This is another problem with the show, the lack of prior establishment before something becomes relevant. Oftentimes, the rules will only be told to us when they're actually being put into practice, or they'll be changed on the fly with new technicalities, blindsiding the audience. So instead of telling the audience all the rules and mechanics ahead of time, and trusting them to be smart enough to figure things out on their own, this instead feels like the show pulling spell cancellation out of its ass for the sake of making Lucy lose. While her teammates all continue to kick ass, Lucy is the odd one out, having her victory stolen from her through nonsense. Oh, and the little freak never shows up again after it goes back to Zareth at the end of this arc, so great, it too is pointless. Now, on its own, this isn't the worst thing ever. It's made worse by the precedent of Lucy's treatment, but oftentimes early losses like this are meant to set up a hard-fought triumph later on by the underdog protagonist. But, not for Lucy. Instead, her next fight is in a naval battle, in which we're reminded, oh yeah, fan service for straight boys is mandatory by shonen law. This is an underwater fight in a giant sphere of water, where all the combatants are women in bikinis and swimsuits. Yeah, they ain't even hiding who this is for. Weird sexualization aside, which is difficult to ignore because it's so blatant and shoved in your face, Lucy is left the last one standing by Minerva, a ruthless spatial wizard from Sabretooth, Fairy Tail's new rival guild. Sabretooth, like most enemies in the show, thinks friendship is stupid and gay, and Minerva tries to prove that by beating the ever-loving shit out of Lucy. A favorite pastime of most villains. The visuals themselves go ham on sexualizing Lucy too as she's beaten, which makes the whole scene infinitely more uncomfortable. And yes, maybe that's the point, but it's still gross, and still an insult to a character who has supposedly grown so much since her first day at Fairy Tail. Thanks, I hate it. Lucy still garners a lot of points given that she was the second to last standing, but it's ostensibly a loss, and one that comes with vicious pain and injury and humiliation, physically and emotionally. Lucy gets no victory, only pain. It's a spit in the eye to everyone who wanted Lucy to show just how far she had come in 6 seasons, as the show refuses to let her shine, instead opting to torment her for daring to stand in her power. Though she is important later on in sealing the Eclipse Gate, it's again too little too late, especially given it involves her future self being murdered in front of her. Again, anime, just go with it. Also, I can't help but notice how we want Lucy to be the most important, powerful person ever who we need for the plot, and she's super duper special, and yet we refuse to put that into practice and regularly humiliate her. I just find that odd. The turning point for how Lucy is treated comes in the Tartaros arc. Through albeit bullshit means, Lucy escapes a curse which traps the rest of Fairy Tail during their attack on the eponymous Dark Guild's headquarters. How did she avoid it? The show never explains, so who the fuck even knows? I'm sure there's some theories on the wiki or something. Lucy is left alone to save the day, going up against several powerful demons that gave her friends a run for their money. She's forced to sacrifice Aquarius Key in order to summon the Celestial Spirit King, who is the only one strong enough to break the curse, free everyone, and deal a lethal blow to Tartaros. Aquarius doesn't die, but Lucy does lose her key and thus her ability to summon her. They get one last goodbye in the final season, but I love this, as it's a rare time in Fairy Tail that a true sacrifice that isn't immediately undone must be made. And of course, it's only for Lucy, because apparently everyone else can get whatever they've sacrificed back, just given enough time. And right after this moment, Lucy is basically benched for the rest of the Tartaros arc, not allowed to do anything aside from kill the annoying yellow hyena man that no one likes. Even Lucy's greatest moments in the show wind up being tainted by its overall treatment of her. And honestly, as much as I do cry from her losing Aquarius, it is soured for me because the running gag of Aquarius hating Lucy, and every woman ever, along with the show's need to cling to the status quo at all costs, results in Lucy and Aquarius' dynamic remaining static for the entire show up until this point. The most that they have gotten is one episode where Lucy and Yukino try to present their spirits with gifts. Aquarius demands that Lucy make her laugh, and it only succeeds when Aquarius, frustrated by Lucy's incompetence, tries to drown her and throws her off a cliff. It is a very cute moment, but that's it. Over 200 episodes, and this is the most work they've managed to do on their relationship? It makes it all the clearer that the cost of these running gags is too damn high, and winds up hurting the characters more than it helps. I know I have thrown a lot of shade, but I say this out of love. I criticize because I try to be honest with the things that I love. I want a story where Lucy is allowed to shine as she deserves, where she is not treated like a joke, and the torture she endures is not fetishized. I'm a sucker for underdogs, which probably adds to Lucy being my favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's why she's Mashima's favorite too. But there comes a point where you gotta let your girl stand on her own and prove that she is indeed a bad bitch. The way she gets to kick ass in the final season, I wish that was her standard. She's finally at the same level as everyone else, able to hold her own. That said, there's still gratuitous Lucy torture from Demaria and a weird scene of Brandish demanding that they bathe together? Yeah, I give up. I give up. I don't want to know. I want to unsee this. But my point is that even when she's fully in her power, Lucy still can't quite escape the show's need to bring her down a peg and humiliate her. I'm not saying Lucy should be the most powerful wizard to ever wizard or that she's flawless. Far from it. She's heavily flawed, and that's why I love her. She's brash, she's stubborn. Sometimes she just does not think before she speaks. And honestly, I enjoy how much of a coward she can be, even when she's trying to do the right thing. Rather, I wish the show did a better job at handling all her flaws, and didn't wind up making her the runt of the litter, when really, it should have been more focused on the strengths that she provides, and how she fits into her new team. And I'm at least grateful for how deeply human she is in the story of her family. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this from me, then be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications, because YouTube hates creators. I literally got a notification while I was recording this that apparently the YouTube CEO is stepping down. I hope to God we don't get someone worse. If you're able and willing, I would very much appreciate you pledging your support for myself and the channel over on Patreon. And hey, like I said, Lucy and I are both writers. And if you're interested in my work, you can check out my new adult urban fantasy novel, Disnerbus from the Ashes, in the links below and wherever books are sold. I'm the Unicorn of War, and the Heartfilia family is a shit show. Oh my god.